I've really been focusing on kind of trying to explain to people about these power laws, and not just about power laws of price, but like power laws of adoption, right? So, Bitcoin at the end of the day, it is growing almost exponentially.
Fred Krueger begins by highlighting one of Bitcoin's fundamental advantages over traditional money: the ability to hold and move your money independently. Unlike fiat currencies, which require bank accounts and are often restricted by geographical boundaries, Bitcoin allows for self-custody. This means you can store your Bitcoin in a digital wallet and take it anywhere in the world. For instance, euros are not accepted in the United States, and dollars are not useful in the Netherlands. However, Bitcoin transcends these limitations, providing a universal medium of exchange that can be accessed and used globally without the need for a bank. This ability to self-custody and transport money easily is a revolutionary aspect of Bitcoin. Fiat currencies must be stored in bank accounts, which involves third-party intermediaries that control and gatekeep access to your money. Bitcoin, on the other hand, can be stored in a personal digital wallet, offering a new level of financial freedom and security. The second major advantage Krueger discusses is Bitcoin's capability to be sent anywhere in the world without intermediaries. Traditional financial systems require checks, wires, or other forms of intermediated transfers. Bitcoin eliminates these intermediaries, enabling direct peer-to-peer transactions globally. This feature is shared by other cryptocurrencies as well, but Bitcoin's pioneering status and widespread adoption give it a significant edge.
There's a couple things that Bitcoin does much better than regular money, right? And the first thing I think it does is it allows your money to be held in custody by yourself and moved wherever you want, right? And, if you have euros and you move to America, your euros are basically useless. We do not accept the euro over here, right?
Yeah.
The dollar, my dollars in Netherlands are pretty useless, But Bitcoin is this unit where I can hold my Bitcoin in a wallet, and I can take that wallet anywhere I want in the world, right? And that's a fundamentally new thing, and I think that's actually the killer app of Bitcoin, right? Is that it's sort of it's money that you can hold, and you can move around the world, right? That's the first thing. I think it's just, and nothing has this, because fiat really has to be stored in a bank account, right?
Yeah.
And then there's some third party that's kind of gating it. Bitcoin can be stored, just in a wallet, right? And so that's the first thing. The second thing is, I can send Bitcoin anywhere to anybody, anywhere in the world, without an intermediary either, right? So I don't need a checkbook to send it. I don't need a wire to send it. I can send it to anybody in the world. And again, that's a really new thing, right? Now, other cryptocurrencies have that capability, as they have the capability of the wallet, right? But I would think those two things are the things that are the biggest capabilities of crypto in general, right? And then the third thing is, this sort of finite supply, right? So, it cannot be debased. And I think between those things, I think you have something that is extremely powerful. And it's extremely powerful for people to keep their money out of the reach of the government.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the biggest, that's the core driver of Bitcoin's growth. Number one driver is, I want to take my money and I want to move it outside of the banking system. I want to move it outside of the government system. If this is going to become the future world money, right? Mm-hmm. Then if you don't get involved at year 15 of the future of world money, you kind of miss pretty much the biggest thing that's going to change the world economy, going forward. I don't see anything that's going to be bigger than that, right? Because if the entire money supply changes to a world where we're running Bitcoin, and if that happens within the next, say, 20 years, well, the difference between you not getting involved now and getting involved 20 years from now is, I mean, it's going to be completely night or day as to kind of whether you retire, for example. You know what I mean? You still may retire, but it's an amazing opportunity, right? It's hard without looking at sort of quantitative numbers of how much this is catching on, and that's one of the things I've been kind of doing on Twitter recently. Is I really been focusing on kind of trying to explain to people about these power laws, and not just about power laws of price, but like power laws of adoption, right? So, Bitcoin at the end of the day, it is growing almost exponentially. It's growing like a weed, okay?
Yeah.
And basically, 25% a year, there's more Bitcoin users every year. And it doesn't matter whether price is going up or down, the usage is increasing, right? And there's all these ways of measuring that. You can measure people who have 1 Bitcoin, or people who have 1/10 of a Bitcoin, or addresses that have 1/100th of a Bitcoin, or even addresses that have 10 Bitcoin. And you see these things are growing at sort of a geometric rate, right? And so there's, it really is, there is no uncertainty about it. It's just, this thing's growing. It's sort of like population growth in a country like, India, right? Population growth in Netherlands is not growing, but population in India is growing, or Mexico, it's growing every year. It's growing at, 7% a year. Yeah. And, I think we're dealing with sort of an inevitability of the growth and adoption of Bitcoin. That's really the basis. Now, this is also growing in terms of price. It's also growing in a very consistent way, but it's a little harder to really appreciate and understand that, because it's happening in this logarithmic kind of way. And we have very bad intuition for logarithmic growth.
Krueger emphasizes that the finite supply of Bitcoin is another critical feature. Unlike fiat currencies, which can be printed at will by governments and central banks, Bitcoin has a capped supply of 21 million coins. This scarcity ensures that Bitcoin cannot be debased through inflation, preserving its value over time. This finite supply is a fundamental aspect that drives Bitcoin's value proposition and distinguishes it from traditional money. The combination of these features, self-custody, borderless transactions, and finite supply, creates a powerful financial tool that appeals to individuals seeking to keep their money out of the reach of governments and traditional banking systems. Krueger argues that this desire for financial autonomy is a core driver of Bitcoin's growth. As more people recognize the benefits of moving their money outside conventional systems, Bitcoin's adoption continues to increase. Krueger points out that understanding Bitcoin's potential requires a forward-looking perspective. If Bitcoin is to become the future global currency, early adopters stand to benefit significantly. He draws an analogy between getting involved with Bitcoin now and waiting 20 years. The difference, he suggests, could be the deciding factor in whether you secure a comfortable retirement or miss out on a transformative financial opportunity.
Back in the day, a long, long time ago, Bitcoin was really cheap, right? Like you were saying, right? 2013, it was like a couple $100, right? You can buy Bitcoin for $200, right? So there was this prehistory where it was very cheap. And then in 2017, it kind of went from $1,000 to $20,000, right? Almost 20,000. Then it crashed. And then it was like dead. And then it went in late 2020, it rose again from the dead, and it went to $60,000. And then it stayed there for about a year, it went down and went back up. It hit 60,000, 69,000 in the second peak. Then it crashed. And then it did nothing for 3 years, it died, and then last year it went back up. Well, that doesn't sound like a straight line at all, right? Like
No.
that's not that sort of like sounds like a very risky kind of investment that probably too risky for most people, right? Like especially somebody my age, right? They'd be like, yeah, I don't need that. That sounds like way too much volatile, just complete risky casino, you know? But if you look at it on logarithmic space and you say, great, let's look at the logarithm of Bitcoin price, right? Which the logarithm is a good way that you can put a graph of Bitcoin price over a very wide time scale, right? So from when Bitcoin was at 10 cents, right? So the logarithm is -1 at 10 cents, right? To right now where Bitcoin, let's say it's roughly $100,000, not quite 100,000 yet, but 100,000 would be 10 to the power 6. So the logarithm of it in base 10 is 6. So you went from -1 to +6, right?
Yeah.
So you look at that, and now the trick is look at time also on a logarithmic basis. So look at time starting at the Genesis block and 15 years from there. So 10 years, that's 1, right? Because 10 to the power 1, 10 to the power 1 is 10, right? And so, you start at 0, you go to a little bit beyond 1. Now you're at, 1.4, right? Or 1.3, And so if you look at time that way and the logarithm price, now you see, whoa, it's a complete straight line.
Yeah.
It's very clear. Once you see it, you're like, I can't unsee that. It's completely a straight line. And now it wobbles around the straight line, but it's very clear that it's growing linearly. Not possible that it's random, right?
Yeah.
And I think, there's not that many people have seen that graph, including not that many Bitcoiners, right?
Yeah.
And so once you see that graph, you're like, oh, that's odd. Why is this thing that went up from 10 cents to 100,000? So it went up 7 orders of magnitude, right?
Yeah.
How could something that grow up in such a consistent way? And the answer is it's a power law. It's part of these power laws that exist in nature all over the place.
Quantitative data supports Krueger's assertions about Bitcoin's growth. He notes that Bitcoin's adoption rate is increasing by about 25% annually, regardless of price fluctuations. This steady growth is evident in various metrics, such as the number of wallets holding Bitcoin and the amount of Bitcoin held in different quantities. These indicators demonstrate that Bitcoin's user base is expanding geometrically, akin to population growth in rapidly growing countries like India or Mexico. Krueger underscores the inevitability of Bitcoin's growth and adoption. Despite price volatility, the underlying trend is one of exponential growth. He likens this growth to a natural phenomenon, governed by power laws that exist throughout nature. This perspective helps to demystify Bitcoin's seemingly erratic price movements and highlights the long-term consistency of its upward trajectory. A critical tool for understanding Bitcoin's price growth is the logarithmic scale. By plotting Bitcoin's price logarithmically over time, Krueger reveals a clear linear trend. This method smooths out the dramatic peaks and troughs, providing a more accurate representation of Bitcoin's growth. Viewing Bitcoin's price on a logarithmic scale from its inception to the present shows a consistent and predictable pattern of increase, driven by the same power laws that govern other natural phenomena. Krueger's analysis provides a compelling case for Bitcoin's enduring value and potential. By recognizing the linear growth on a logarithmic scale, it's easier to appreciate Bitcoin's long-term prospects despite short-term volatility. This understanding can shift the perception of Bitcoin from a risky, speculative asset to a robust and inevitable evolution of money. Please like and subscribe my channel.